Hello, welcome to some last minute revision starting with your essays. Now, for your essays, we are testing you on the Japanese occupation, so you have to know how the different races were treated. All right, what were the experiences of the different races? Right, so all these things I wrote here in the notes I have provided for you in the Google Doc link. So, hash, kind, hash. Right, know specifically what are the things that happen, right? For Chinese, especially, this is very important. Screening, what is the Sokching? Is the screening process of Chinese males, right? Please remember Chinese males, right? It's Chinese males 18 to 50, right? And once you screen, you've been sent to the beaches to be killed. Okay, and this had a lot of suspicion built up among the people. So please remember this Sokching well and remember who did it. Who did it is the Kempentai. Okay. So you must remember this. What is the purpose of this? Well, simply to remove anti-Japanese elements in Singapore and to instill fear in the people, right? Next, the Malays. What did the Japanese do for the Malays? I mean, how did they support the Malays? How did they win over support, help encourage the Malays? Number one, they gave them opportunities, right? Opportunities where? Of course, in education, right? In education, right? In defense, in the administration of Singapore. Please memorize these things. Please memorize these things. Okay, what is the purpose of doing all these things? So that they can have a livelihood, they have a pleasant life, and you can gain their support, right? You can gain their support and assistance in running the country. Okay, so for the Indians, what did they do for the Indians? They provide assistance for their independence movements in India. So please remember, what did they form? They formed the Indian National Army. Alright, they formed the Indian National Army. They helped the Indians in Singapore to form the Indian National Army. Alright, what is the purpose of this? It's the same as the Malays, right? Which is this, to help gain support from them, right? Help them get independence from the British in India by helping them to form an Indian national army to fight for independence in India. Okay, to fight for independence in India. Okay, lastly, the Eurasians treated harshly because they became prisoners of war, right? Where they made to do a lot of mundane tasks like cleaning the waterworks, repairing airfields, and so on and so forth. They were given little food, they became malnourished and very thin. And what is the purpose of this? So that you can dispel the white man's superiority and promote Japanese superiority. So this table is very important, very important. Okay, example, two ways they help the Malays: they provide education, and number two, they give them opportunities in defense and administration, right? Example, so how did they treat the Chinese? Well, they treated them harshly. How did they treat them harshly? Make them go through searching and screening by the Kempentai, right? How did they treat the Indians? Quite well. They treated the Indians quite well because they provided what? Assistance for their independence movement. They helped to form the Indian National Army. So all these key terms, key examples are very important. You have to know it. You have to know it. Okay. So Sokchin, Kempentai, opportunities in education, Indian National Army, POWs. Alright, all these things. Okay, so for your essay reminder, please ensure that you know what is the outcome. Especially for the 7-mark second question, you must know exactly what is the outcome. Please explain. Give a strong main factor. Alright, one paragraph, 1 point. Make sure you have one paragraph, 1 point. Okay, don't mix up. Don't mix up. I repeat again, don't mix up and tell me 2 points inside one paragraph. Alright, so one paragraph, one main point. One main point, and then some examples, and then explain how the main point leads to the outcome as stated at the question. At least 2 sentences. So, for example, if I ask you how the Japanese actually controlled the locals, right? This is your main point, right? So your whole paragraph will anchor upon propaganda and censorship. Your whole paragraph will anchor upon propaganda and censorship. So what is the propaganda? What is the censorship? Then you list it down, right? The propaganda is such that in schools, Singapore, I mean, they had to sing the national anthem and learn Japanese instead of English. So this is important as well. You must know how the Japanese, what the Japanese did to people in terms of propaganda and censorship, right? So make them sing the anthem and learn Japanese. Take part in activities promoting Japanese value of hard work and humility. Alright, so this part here is talking about the propaganda. Okay, what about the censorship? Censorship means what you cannot read, right? Things that the Japanese want you to know, the messages. So in the media, movies, books, newspaper, and radio, all controlled by Japanese, only used to promote Japanese pride and Japanese culture. That is a censorship, right? They censor the media, they censor books, newspapers, and the radio such that people only listen to and read about what the Japanese wants them to read. So because of all this, this is the explanation part. Because of all this, people become brainwashed, right? Or this word called indoctrinated. They become heavily influenced by the culture and the values. They lost their freedom. And so when these things happen, right, just like North Korea, people will not rebel, right? People will have no choice but to obey, because you are inculcated, you are indoctrinated, you are heavily influenced with their values, their culture. You're more than likely to end up supporting them or end up obeying them, because you have no choice, right? You have no other outside ideas to influence you. So hence, propaganda and censorship was one way the Japanese could control the locals, right? So this explanation is where you're going to get your marks, the majority of your marks from. So this is very important. You must know how you want to explain how your points actually speak of control, right? This is the outcome they want you to write. So how do all these things that you're doing here give you control over the locals? Well, because of all these things, right, people will end up obeying because they are heavily influenced by the culture and the values, right? No freedom of speech, no outside ideas can influence them. All right. So then you leave a line, you write your next paragraph. All right. Answer the question: Japanese controlled the locals. Then your main point now is through the use of force. Okay. What is the force? Well, the force is the key thing is the Sokching, right? The Sokching again. So what is the Sokching? Tell me what is the Sokching? The Kempeitai targeted the Chinese males for mass screening to eliminate anti-Japanese element. Many of them after that brought to the beaches to be killed. Right? So how do you explain this? So what if they do all this? How does it give you control over people? Because of this, right? Because of this treatment. So right, because of this treatment, there was fear, right? Fear that turned to obedience as they are afraid to go against the Japanese. They don't want to die. This created a lot of fear, a lot of tension, right? A lot of fear, a lot of tension, a lot of suspicion. Hence, many of them will become afraid and they will just obey, because if you don't obey, you will die. So they want to keep their lives. So this is how you explain, right? Explain how the Sukching leads to control over the people, because it helps to create fear and anxiety, right? That they may be killed, so they'll be less likely to disobey, they'll be more likely to show obedience to the Japanese, and thus link it again. This is how the Japanese control the locals. So you must explain and link back to the question. So when you do the exam, please give me two very clear paragraphs with two very clear main points: propaganda, censorship, and use of force, for example, and two very clear examples and clear explanations. All right. So what I want to say is that the essay is very simple and it's 10 marks. I expect that you get at least 8, 9, 10. 8 to 10 upon 10, right? And then for your source base, that means you only need about 6-7 marks and you cleared the paper. You have at least achieved the pass. So that is what I want. Okay, so you must know this table over here. You must know how to do it properly, do the essay properly with a proper answering of the question and a proper main point. Right, answer the question. Yes, here answer the question. If they ask you how we control, you say the Japanese controlled the locals, then give me the main point through this. And what is this? All these things consist of that. Okay, be very clear what you want to write. Okay, so that is for your essay.